Hi, this is Pete Lyons with Let's Play Salesforce. And in tonight's Einstein Analytics video, we are going to be talking about something I have been waiting to see for a very long time. That's right, hot dogs. Arthur from Salesforce is going to join us to tell us about what the feature actually is called. I honestly don't know. It's always just been hot dogs to me. But Arthur, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Arthur Fabre. I'm a product manager at Salesforce. And I've joined a bit more than a year ago now, so pretty excited to be here. So I'm going to be talking about the real name of the feature, which is dashboard components. So let me go ahead and share the screen. Well, so I built a quick dashboard for this demo. So what you're viewing here is it looks like any dashboard, and this is because it is one. So the new feature dashboard component is a new widget type that you can see on the left here, right there. And what it is you can view this as kind of a mini dashboard inside of which you can add widgets. So I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. And you can create pages as well. The reason why we built this is to solve two main use cases. The first one is something that we hear a lot, and that's been a pain point for our dashboard authors, is maintainability and reusability. So today, we know that across multiple of your dashboards, you probably have very similar elements, such as like the company logo with some main title for your set of dashboards, and then like maybe a KPI that's really important that you want to maintain. So those common elements, whenever you're going to want to have them across several dashboards, you're going to have to create them in every single dashboard. And when you're going to want to edit them, for whatever reason, maybe the way the KPI is computed has changed, or the company logo has changed, well, then you actually need to go into every dashboard to change this, right? And we understand the pain here. So with components, you will now be able to create a new widget, and inside of which you have a bunch of other widgets and potentially pages, and reuse this element across your dashboards. And what's nice about it as well is that when you're going to want to edit this component everywhere, you're going to have to edit it in one place. So it's kind of like this centralized elements that every change get carried everywhere. And if you're kind of afraid of like this maybe not being relevant to all the dashboard where this component is actually present, showing you that we have messages to show you where this component is actually leveraged. And if you don't want to affect all those dashboards, then what you will be able to do is create a copy of this component and then embed this into your dashboards. So enough of me talking, let's get into the fun part of the video, which is the demo. So here, I'm just going to be showcasing what the component creation looks like. So like any widget type, you can drag and drop it onto the dashboard grid. And then you have two options, either clicking in the middle of it or just clicking in create component in the property panel. So if I go ahead and do so, what this does is it takes you to something that looks like a dashboard canvas, but actually it's the component designer, right? So if you notice, you're now in a new tab, and this is called new component. So a couple things here, you can notice that there are small differences. One being you should not be able to see here the component widget that you see in the dashboard, because we're not doing any inception here. You're not able to have components inside of components. So this is prohibited. And then we'll be able to discuss more on the limitations later. But so far, what I just want to showcase here is just showing you what you can do and go ahead and kind of create this component and then add it onto the dashboard. So let's go ahead and add a chart. And here, for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to create something pretty simple. So here, just adding a grouping. Let's do billing country. All right, so we have a count of rows, accounts, and those splits on every country that they belong to. And now if I go ahead and save this dashboard and say, call it components YouTube demo. One thing to notice here is where you save this dashboard. So in this case, by default, it will be saved to your private app. And that kind of brings up the question of who is able to see the components, because we'll talk about reusability. And so similarly to dashboards that are saved in apps, those are saved, components are part of apps. And so people will be able to visualize components inside of dashboards if they have access to the app where the components are saved. All right, so let me go ahead and save this in my private app for now. And if I go back to the components demo here, I can move this, make it bigger. And what I'm actually interested in doing here is click on Find Components and embed the components that I just created. And as you can see, what they did is it pulled up the latest version of the components. So let me now move on to the second part, which is the components picker. So this is what I kind of showed on the side here, which is this this picker that we were planning to actually enhance, save Fabre here, but to kind of make it better and show you what are the apps where this is actually where the components are saved. So here you're able to search for your components pretty easily, as well as create a new component, right? So so for here, I'm going to choose another one, which is this guy that I've created before. So here you have a text widget, and what you notice is that I actually created a bunch of pages inside of this component. And if I go into view mode, you can actually toggle through them, right? And this leads me to the next part of the demo, which is the page navigation. So this is going to be a pilot feature in the Winter 21 release, if I'm correct on the release. It has a couple of limitations. For now, we're not planning on having the link widget enabled. So this will be coming in when it goes GA, and again, safe harbor in the release right after this. So here we're using a nav widget to go from a page to another, and this brings the second use case of components in light to light, which is the ability to easily create rich and interactive dashboards. So be able to create without code dynamic groupings or dynamic chart visualizations. So let me just show you what I mean by this. Is in this case, what I did is similarly to the last query, I grouped those accounts by country. Let's say that I want to easily have a different visualization and just view those accounts, but not on a bar chart, but more on a world map, right? So just using the components page, I'm still in the same dashboard, still on the same page of this dashboard, but now inside of this, I'm actually able to toggle through different visualizations for the same query, right? So now I'm able to have this visualization as a world map, right? Let's say now that I actually want to have this grouped by industry using different groupings. Now I created a page with just different groupings for the same query again, and now I'm looking at the different industries, right? And last but not least, if you want to actually look at something completely different, the accounts evolution for the last year based on their type, you can go ahead and create those pages as well. So this is just to show you how you're able to create those dynamic interactions and dynamic groupings or dynamic measures like changes just through the UI. You're just simply creating new pages of that component, and that allows you to easily toggle through. The other thing that this will indirectly do is allow expand the 20-page limit, and we're conscious that this was a hard limit that we enforced, and this will help increasing this, because a lot of the interactions and a lot of the things that you were leveraging the pages to achieve, you'll now be able to use components and pages inside of components to do the same thing, right? Obviously, we're planning on having also a limit on the number of components you can have in a page and the number of pages you can have inside of components, but that will still definitely help you. And yeah, that's pretty much the demo.
First, I want to say that's amazing, and I have been waiting for this feature for a very long time. And just for the audience at home who have no idea why I keep saying hot dogs, the first time that I heard about this was actually a couple of years ago. You know, when you weren't even at Salesforce yet, and your predecessor, you know, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're considering developing this feature. We want to know what you think." And they had asked the designers to make some mock-ups for them, and they didn't know what they were going to call it yet. So the designer's like, "Okay, well, I need to know what you want the button to look like." And they're like, "Well, we don't know what it's called." So the designer picked a hot dog for the placeholder icon. And that's why when they emailed me about it, they're like, "Let's talk about hot dogs." And I'm like, "What?" But, you know, it's a really amazing feature, because to your point, reusability is a big pain point. I remember in 2017, I had a client that always wanted the same set of filters on a dashboard. And this is before we had global filters. We just had list widgets. And so getting them all built out, getting them all tweaked just right. If they were across, you know, a couple of them are cross data sets, so we had to have some bindings ready. So what we ended up actually doing was we created a blank dashboard that just had those. And we kind of used that as our template. And if we wanted to go back and add that to any existing dashboards, it was a manual process with the JSON. But, you know, that was us trying to solve for this need before it was available. So I'm really fascinated. Not only is this dashboard section, but it's also page section too. So you know, that's a really cool thing too, because like pages within pages and tabs within tabs is something that is frequently asked for. And that's usually when I resort to bindings. So I'll have the pages, but then I'll have a toggle selector that's driven off a static step. So I noticed though the default grid is set to 6 columns wide, but for all intents and purposes, this is just a dashboard. Like I didn't see differences in the JSON footprint. It's just, it just doesn't, you can't have a component in a component. So why 6?
I actually can't recall. Let me check if you can change it. I do think, oh, that didn't work out.
Yeah, because you can change it. I tested it. I set it as low as 2. I set it as high as 50. I also was able to set the row heights and everything.
I think the intent.
My guess is,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do think the intent was that because components are going to be part of dashboards, what we're trying to show with like a bigger grid is that this is going to be inputted inside of a dashboard, and so the view should be actually like pretty large, and you shouldn't be like putting something too small, because what the risk behind like putting a smaller grid or like a finer grid is that you're going to start putting a lot of things inside of this component. And usually, and what I showcased in my demo, I actually put the components like full screen and inside of the dashboard. But usually what users are going to want to do is embed those components like side by side inside of their dashboards and with a bunch of other widgets. And therefore, like if we were to make this grid as thin as like the dashboard one, then it would give like a different impression. So this is kind of where we were trying to go.
Yeah, because I also observed when I was experimenting with this, I took a dashboard and I set it to the 50 wide grid, and then I created a table that was 50 wide, and then I put it inside of the dashboard on only three columns. And sure, yeah, my dashboard's still there because I had a couple of text widgets put as like placeholders, because I really wanted to see, is it going to try to adapt to like the grid and the layout properties of the host dashboard? And no, it's not. It's almost like if you just shrunk your browser window to whatever amount of real estate you gave it on that dashboard, and its properties exist independently. So
exactly.
Next question, and my assumption is probably not yet, but how does it play with faceting, with other components on the dashboard? Can we bind in and out of it? And I'm assuming probably not right now.
Yeah, that's right. So the couple limitations and definitely, so faceting and filtering will not work in the pilot version. This is something that we have already started working on, and we're planning to go to deliver in the GA version of it for sure. Because right now, when you embed this component, it kind of acts as a black box pretty much. And we are completely conscious of all the limitation that this has, right? Because if we say like, oh, there's this awesome new widget that comes in your dashboard, but you actually cannot interact with it at all when you embedded it, then there's kind of, I wouldn't say it's useless, but it definitely takes away a lot of the advantages of EA, right? And all the faceting and the filtering possibilities. And so, yeah, for the pilot version, it's not present right now, faceting filtering, but it's coming. We're working on it, and kind of to give you a bit more info on how it will work is we'll give you the choice of deciding whether or not you actually want, similar to when you say like you toggle on like faceting and filtering, like do you want to accept when you pass like filters and stuff. Similarly to this, we'll say like, all right, do you want to accept and kind of open this component up to the dashboard, or keep it kind of in this siloed mode?
So that very similar to the behavior that we have today on individual steps, where it's like, and I don't know how it slipped past me without me even noticing. Now we can actually specify individuals instead of just saying facet, do not facet, broadcast, or receive. We can also specify for specific steps, include or exclude. So we have very granular control.
Yeah. So yeah, you will be able to. So this will come in as, I mean, you will. So now you're able to do it with individual queries. We're still working on the specific like including and excluding faceting, because I do not think we will give the ability to choose queries to exclude that are, when you're looking at your dashboard and you want to choose queries to include or exclude the queries that are part of the child components, I do not think we will go into that deep into the faceting options, but you will be able to actually, exactly like you said, control, like, do you want this component to receive and broadcast facets? When it comes to binding, you are able to do some binding. So what you're actually able to do is have a link widget on the parent dashboard and bind this to pages of a component. So you're able to do this right now. However, we're planning this use case kind of won't be, it will be temporary, because when we actually we were planning on enabling the navigation from the link widget afterwards. So you will be able to do so in the future. But yeah, you should be able to bind the same way you were binding to anything else, any dashboard properties.
And speaking of bindings, because whenever you guys give me a JSON parameter, I immediately see, does it accept bindings? Because why not? I mean, who would bind into that? Well, I don't know. I'm going to try it. Do you know if the component itself, if you can bind into like the ID so that you could have the component be dynamic, or would you recommend just using different pages to show different components?
I'm actually not sure about this.
I'll have to try it, because sometimes you guys lock stuff out. Sometimes it doesn't work until you make it work, but you'd be surprised. There's a lot of places that bindings shouldn't work that they totally do.
Yeah, I'm not surprised actually. But yeah, no, I mean, our users get really creative, and as like we like to say is, we never know what you guys are going to do when we build things. Like sometimes you guys just do things that we don't expect. I'm actually not sure if you're able to dynamically choose the component that will appear in the component's placeholder. I do not think so, but you know what? Surprise me.
It's easy enough to find out. I'll give it a test, but I don't imagine that it'll be a pleasant user experience, because I usually find it's like, if I manage to find the back door, mileage may vary. You get what you get.
Yeah.
So my next question.
Actually, before you move on, and kind of on that note, and this is kind of like more insights on what we're working on and thinking of. One thing we're thinking of that is close to what you just mentioned is not dynamically choosing what components you're passing, but dynamically choosing the properties of the component, or more generally, the properties of the widgets. So dynamically choosing what are you showing for some widgets or some components. So, you know, kind of the use case that comes up a lot is for some sales agent that's located in a specific region, being able to pass parameters from this user profile to like the components or like just the dashboard as a whole, and saying like, all right, like display his picture, his name, and kind of sales that are oriented towards where this sale agent is actually working. So,
yeah, and without having to write SQL queries on or Salesforce Direct
right.
on the component.
No, that would be through the UI.
Nice. So next question. I noticed in the component picker, we've got our list of available components. Next to them, we have the placeholder icon for dashboard that we often see in Analytics Studio if we you know, haven't run it in a while, or if we haven't, if we've got the secure image thing turned off. So am I able to take that as maybe one day we're going to see preview icons of the components, or is that just kind of a placeholder for, hey, you know, we need an icon?
So for now, this is the state of it. Though we are definitely thinking of improving this experience. So as I mentioned when I was doing the demo, we're already thinking of improving this picker to kind of give you a bit more details. So one is showing you like what are the apps that those components are saved in, just so that, you know, it's easier to find things. And we are actually like thinking a step further, and this won't be, I mean, this probably won't make it to the GA version because this is more kind of user experience and less feature work. But we're definitely already, we already have the designs for it, and we've thought of improving the overall experience and actually making this look similar to what you have when you build things from templates. So we've started exploring, you know, the idea of building components templates, because what's going to happen, and you mentioned it earlier, is you were saying, you know, you were building kind of a blank dashboard with this template of filters for your customers, right? And what's going to happen is in people, and I mean, I hope that I'm predicting this right, but that people are going to start using components as templates, right? And they're going to want to leverage them across multiple dashboards. And so why not thinking of providing users pre-made templates, right? Like, and you can have like whatever, like there's so many possibilities here for industry templates, or just like a template for kind of like your themes or your marketing teams, or, you know, you can go crazy about like the number of possibilities that this will open up. And so this is definitely something that we're thinking of. And so improve when we'll get to that point, we're definitely thinking of having what we call a kind of like a gallery where you're able to visualize your components, have a preview of them, and something that looks much better.
Nice. So next question, and this isn't really so much a question, but an observation and kind of, I would call it a consideration. I hate scroll bars, okay? I really hate scroll bars. And there might have been some scroll barception going on there. So let's say that we have a bar chart that, you know, is longer than the rendered space. We're going to have a scroll bar for that. Then let's say the component dashboard itself is large enough that it requires a scroll bar, because we have a component that's this big and we embed it into a dashboard and only give it this much space. Now we get another scroll bar. Now that dashboard itself is kind of a scrolly monster. That's 3 scroll bars. Now let's say we take it one step further, and one thing that I've been doing lately is I like to actually, if I want to have a dashboard that's filtered to the context of the current user and it's available in core Salesforce, I've actually been embedding them in Visualforce pages and making Visualforce tabs, because then instead of doing a SQL query on the dashboard, what I can do is I can use Visualforce to pass in that filter and say filter to the currently logged in user. And this way, I don't have any custom code or bindings or anything on the dashboard level, and the user can still click it off. So, and it's a great user experience, except that you do have to call out the height of the dashboard in pixels, and if you make it anything but like 830, you're going to have another scroll bar. So then on top of this, this could be, you know, embedded into a Salesforce page that has a whole lot of information on it, because these Visual Force pages drop right into Lightning pages. I think, what are we at now? 14,000 scroll bars. So
no, that's
nothing.
fair.
And I don't think this is something that the product team needs to address. I think it's something that builders need to be aware of. Don't create a scenario where you have 100 scroll bars. So make sure that, you know, these components that you're designing, make them fit. You know, nobody likes scroll bars. I mean, maybe somebody out there does like scroll bars, but you're doing it wrong. I hate scroll bars. That's pages. What an amazing feature. So we don't need scroll bars. So I got 2 more questions for you. And this one might be a little tricky to answer, and I know it's a big safe harbor thing. But what's the overall timeline for what you're thinking for, you know, a beta and then potentially GA?
No, that's fair. That's a good question. So safe harbor, obviously, we were actually hoping to go beta, but to be completely transparent, because this feature is affecting pretty much every area of the code that we've built as part of the builder, and actually other areas. It's quite complex, and we've decided to limit it to a pilot, because this way we have more control over like what happens, because it is a feature that affects a lot of areas, right? And it's a feature that we really encourage people to use, because we want your feedback, right? Like we want to understand like what are the things you guys can do with it, and kind of the areas that we missed or we need to improve. But it's quite impactful, and so we went pilots, and it's an open pilot, and we're welcoming as many customers as possible. As I said, we want your feedback, and the goal is to actually not go beta, because this is what we wanted to do, but go GA in the next release. So fingers crossed, this works out. There is still a lot of work for us to do, and this is kind of the objective that we've agreed on, and we spend a lot of time. We actually just spent a lot of time in the past weeks with the team, kind of identifying what's needed to get to GA, right? Like to be ready for this, to actually have all of the functionalities we wanted to have for a GA version. So yeah, hopefully, and we all want this to happen in the next release. So I actually can't remember what's coming after Winter 21. It's
spring 21,
spring 21.
and the predicted delivery date to prod is February, and GS0 in early December.
Nice, you got your dates on point.
Well, I mean, I got to put out the videos around them, right?
That's true.
It's like it's like some of my most watched content, you know, tutorials and new releases. I'm a 2-trick pony.
But no, yeah. So hopefully this works out, and we managed to get this out to everyone in a really good state to get this going and get as much feedback as possible. And
so the last question that I have for you, how do people that want to get involved in the pilot engage?
So this is, I'll be transparent. This is super new to me, so I'm learning as this is happening. I think so. The best way is to reach out to your AEs, so your support agents, and work with them. I did actually just create the org62 like R&D program for the pilot. So those AEs who are interested, just reach out to them. For the customers, reach out to your AEs with the name of this feature, this pilot feature, which is called EA, so Einstein Analytics Dashboard Components, and they should be able to file a record on the R&D program, and that will get directly sent to my inbox. And this way, I'll be able to go into your orgs and enable the feature.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming out. I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I know everybody else has, and it's totally looks like it's going to be worth the wait. And honestly, I never thought that you would just be like, well, why don't we just embed a dashboard in a dashboard? And it's like such a no-brainer. Like, it seems like the best path forward. And we were talking about all this other crazy stuff and how's it gonna, and no, you picked the right way, and now it's going to get out the door. Really, really glad to see this. It makes the wait worth it for other things I want that are far less powerful than this. So that's all we have for tonight. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, tell a friend, and as always, thanks for watching.